I love it. Okay, so let me share my screen here. All right, so let me start that presentation here. I guess it will start on the other screen that I
Hello.
have. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hello.
okay. Hello. Good evening. Bonsoir. So
Bonsoir,
PowerPoint
bonsoir.
doesn't want, bonsoir. So PowerPoint doesn't want to be friend with me tonight and cannot let me start here. Slideshow from beginning. No, PowerPoint is kind of not nice to me. Sorry about that. So
At the
this is
bottom, if you hit
our,
the little painter, it'll show it up.
I try.
Yeah, really?
Not, yeah, nothing
Huh.
happened, John. Done. So let's start. So bienvenue, welcome. So it's the same user group because this user group started in 2004, right? It was a SQL Server user group. We were talking about SQL Server, a lot of DBA stuff. At the time, SSIS was very, very, very beginning. Analysis services, the queue that we find now in Power BI, were very, very beginning. So now it evolved in 2010s, in the mid 2010s, it evolved to the data platform group because now we're starting to talk about Azure SQL, HG Insight, Data Factory at the time. So and now since the past few years, we're talking talking a lot about AI. We're in the group Montreal Data and AI. We're still member of the msdev Montreal meetup group, but it's only a name change here. One thing is new too. We have a YouTube channel. So I will paste this channel in the chat after, right? Once John is presenting. So the presentation will be there tomorrow. So we're going to record the session. It will be available tomorrow here. And nothing would be possible if I was alone. So I have a wonderful team surrounded by two women. So Michelle is with me since 2018 or 2017, something like that. Michelle and Yulin. She's a new joiner, right? Is the first session that she's doing with us. So I'm very happy to have them on board. So that's why, Yulin, you're going to talk about what's coming next, right, Yulin?
Yes. So welcome to the session. We are very happy to launch it for 2026. This is the first one, and later we will continue invite more speakers to talk more fields like the one that coming in February for data break and agent. And I will also talk about some Fabric data quality processing. And we will get guest speaker John talk about build AI-powered application with Azure database for Postgres SQL, and also get Edward to talk about Fabric new T-SQL for SQL Server 2025. And there will be more sessions coming
yes.
later. Just keep looking for
Keep
it.
that in mind, yeah. So if you join the meetup, you will be warned when we have, or you will know when we have a new session because we're talking about AI stuff that is coming also maybe in Feb, right? Shanaz. So we were waiting for a response. So we have a lot of more good stuff coming here. And tonight we have John.
We have John. So John has 30 years of data processing and proven project management experience, specializing in the banking, healthcare, and government areas. His expertise encompassed all phases of the project lifecycle, including design, development, implementation, and maintenance. He is the current chapter president of the Rhode Island SQL Server Users Group,
Yep.
and past recipient of Microsoft MVP for data platform. And his session, John has already spoken for us, and his presentations are awesome.
Yeah.
We are excited to have him here.
Yes. And John is a good friend, right? So
Oh, yes.
we met John a few times. Yes, we met him. Yeah.
We've
we have fun together.
presented at many conferences for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I'll ask everyone except for myself to turn off their cameras, save a little bandwidth. We'll
Yeah,
go
I
back
will.
online at the very end. I'm going
Okay.
to go off shortly, but I just want to do a little housekeeping at the very beginning, and I'll show
Sure.
you a few things. First is I wrote a couple articles on this. They're not out yet, but if you go to SQL Server Central, okay, and you look for John Miner, there's a bunch of articles on Fabric. There will be two articles. One will be talking about seeding, okay, and we'll talk about seeding today. And there's certain times in which you got to be careful, right? And we'll talk about that. But especially with the warehouse, because every time you insert a row, guess what? You're creating a Parquet file. So the Chinook sample database, which is this one, has 18,000 rows. So I ran the initial install script from, this came out with SQLite, and guess what? I went to have coffee, and then I had lunch, and then I took the afternoon off, and it was still running on Fabric, okay? So picking the right tool is very important. So that's all about the housekeeping I want to talk about. Check out SQL Server Central. Two articles on DBT will eventually be published. And this is the Chinook SQL sample database. But let's bring up the slide deck and talk about what we're going to talk about today. Okay. And let me hide the presenter view. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to talk about introduction to DBT, and DBT is short for data build tool, okay? Interesting thing is it's called DBT Labs, okay? And this tool is written in Python. We'll talk more about it, and SQL in YAML, but there's two versions of the tool, and there's two places you can use it, okay? And there's going to be a new place. I was really excited. Microsoft said, hey, we're going to put it in Fabric. It's not there yet, though. I tried loading my project, the Chinook project, up, and it blew up. So more to be said, but eventually, it'll be there. I'm working with the product group to hopefully fix it. So again, my name's John Miner. Been doing this for a long time. I'm a data architect. You can reach me at john@insight.com. Enough about myself. So let's talk about the background. We're going to talk about what DBT is good at and what it doesn't do, okay? We're going to talk about configuring VS Code. So there's two ways to use DBT. You can use a managed version, okay? Like I said, it was built in Python initially. Well, guess what? There's a cloud version that DBT Labs has, and guess what? That is called, I think it's Fusion, if I get the right word, maybe you can look it up, but that's built in Rust, okay? So they decided to use an interesting programming language to create that. We're going to talk about two key concepts, okay? Materializing data and data quality, because having quality data in your warehouse or data mart is really important. And last but not least, we're going to talk about how you can produce documentation, okay? Okay, background. So what is DBT? It's an open source tool. You pay zero for it, okay? So guess what? VS Code, zero costs. And DBT, zero costs, okay? Great. Helps engineers transform existing data in their warehouse. That is a very key word, transform. Does it do an extract? No. Does it do a load? No. But if the data exists, it will do everything you need to do once it's been loaded into your raw zone, okay? Now, even if you're using a data warehouse, you probably still want to do quality zones, right? Maybe you have raw or stage, whatever you want to call it, right? Maybe you have some intermediate ones, okay? Now, DBT has their own names. Like, for instance, when you get something in, it's raw, right? And when you start working with it, stage. But they have something called snapshots. We'll talk about that too. And then eventually get to your march, right? That's your dimensional model, okay? So again, the framework's written in Python, okay? And there's two ways we can define things. The older way is SQL scripts. And there's a reason sometimes to use the SQL scripts because maybe we have to refer to something like a table, okay? And we'll show how to do a ref, okay? And YAML files, okay? And the YAML files tells it how to put everything together, okay? What is the power? The power is the adapters, okay? If I make a project with DBT, I can suddenly deploy it to Fabric Warehouse, Fabric SQL, PostgreSQL, Snowflake, keep on going, right? There's a ton of adapters. So the adapters are just basically code that understands how to talk to the ODBC driver, and usually you have to install the ODBC driver, okay? So I'm going to go through a bunch of slides all up front, and then we're going to do the demo. I think it'll be the easiest way to transition, right? So how do we configure VS Code? Well, first thing is we need to install Python language, okay? And there's a requirement of 3.7 and above, so you got VS Code up here, okay? And we got Python now installed, right? Then once you're there, we need a couple of libraries. Pip install DB core. DB core, okay, is the core library that understands everything. And pip install DB, and why I say adapter, it's whatever you have. So if it's SQL Server, it's SQL Server. If it's Fabric, it's Fabric, and whatever the local driver is, right? So if we were doing Fabric, it'd be pip install DBT Fabric, but the ODBC drivers, 18 for SQL Server still works, right? It's kind of cool. I needed a schema to talk about all the stuff I'm going to do tonight, and I did do the Chinook schema because the problem is most people work with learn with something called Jaffle House. And what it is, it's about a coffee shop, right? And it's such a toy database. It's only a few hundred records, and guess what? Even if you run it against Fabric Warehouse, it performs okay. It eventually finishes, right? Chinook is a really great example of it utterly fails on the Fabric Warehouse. It will not load. However, DBT performs pretty good. And why? It does this in batches, right? It's not going to send a single insert. It's smart enough to say, hey, guess what? I'm going to batch it at 400 rows. And that's configurable too, okay? So we have the library schema. So the question I would have is, and put it in the chat if you want to raise your hand or smiley, how many people are using AI nowadays? You have to be, right? And then VS Code, get GitHub Copilot, okay? And guess what? Claude's my friend, man. Claude loves writing code for me, right? So that's the way to go. So what I did is I said, hey, I want a simple schema, and I said, let's do a library schema, right? We got books, we got members, and we loan out books. Simple, right? And what I did is I asked for some CSV sample records. So let's get into the first demo, which is basically how to do AI. Okay. So what I did is I have a directory here, and it's called the data directory. Okay. And inside the data directory, what I wanted to do is create some CSV files. Now, this is called seeding. Okay. It's one of the ways in which you can get data in. Okay. Should I be seeding all my data into using DBT into the target? And the answer is no. It's there for dimensionals data, okay? Stuff that's very finite, right? US states, there's only 50, right? Dates, there's only so many, right? But maybe products is so many, right? But if I'm suddenly saying, hey, give me a list of all the stars that have been mapped and it's millions, well, I don't want to do that with, basically seeding, okay? So the first thing I did is I said, hey, I want to create some sample data. And what it did is it wrote this program for me. It's kind of cool. It said, hey, guess what? There's Faker out there. And with Faker, it just basically said, hey, create some books, create some members, and create some loans. So, and I told it 25 records. And lo and behold, guess what? We got some data here, okay? So we're going to be talking about this data. Also, later on, initially I start off without a date table, and I'll show you something called ephemeral table, okay? And it's an interesting idea. Basically, it's a placeholder, but we'll get into that. And last but not least is I came back and said, hey, go ahead and give me a dates, right? Because I want a date table. And again, if you have not done AI, right, I'll just show you quickly, right? I can do a file. Let's do new file, right? I'm going to build a Python file and then Control-I, generate a date table. If someone's on not mute, please mute. Using Python and pandas, dump results to a CSV file, and guess what? It should go ahead and create me a table, right? Not as cool as the one I did, but it said, hey, guess what? It's a data frame, and it's date time, current date time, but I didn't tell it what I really wanted. So guess what? You created a date table, but it only did it for today. So that's why AI is not there. We're not losing our jobs right away, right? If we went back and refined to say, generate date table from 2001, let's do it to 2020 to 2030, using pandas, and save to CSV file. Let's see if it comes up with a better example. Let's do undo. And this one basically came up with something better, which is similar to what I did, okay? So enough about creating some sample data. Let's go back and talk about how to start our very first DBT project. Okay, so this is the sample data that I created. Cool thing, one aside, this image was actually created by DBT. Okay, not DBT, but AI. You go ahead and you say, an AI, generate me a SVG file, and then you tell it, hey, this is the information. It will create awesome graphics for you, which is cool. Okay, so tonight we're going to use Azure SQL Database for the source. I'm going to tear it down. We're going to be dangerous, see if we can build it from scratch, okay? Going to initialize a DBT project, and we're going to talk about seeding tables, okay? And seeding is with CSV files, okay? And again, it's not to be there for EL, okay? It's just there for dimensionals, small tables. Okay, we already have this loaded. So I already have it already built out. Let's be dangerous. Let's drop it. Don't jinx me, Christian. Okay, it's gone. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a database. Can someone mute everyone except for me, please?
Doing it.
So this one actually will go ahead and it's going to create a new database, okay? So there's different tiers. It's going to be a general purpose. It's a G5 S, which is serverless, generation 5, 4 cores, okay? So I'm going to run this. I'm going to happen to be in master. I happen to be logged in with JMiner, okay? So if you try to hack me, I'm going to be changing the password anyway, so good luck after this. And don't log in while I'm trying to do the demo, otherwise I'll get you. Hello. So the good thing is I'm not going to create the login. It's already here. It has this password. The only thing we have to do is create the user and give it a role in the database once it creates it. And it's still thinking. And this is the problem. Hopefully this comes back. If we have bad internet connection, I'll be using finger puppets for the rest of the presentation. Come on. Okay, cool. So it created a database. Never know. Sometimes it's a cloudy day at Microsoft, right? So main thing is you cannot use a use statement in Azure SQL database. You have to do the drop down. So I did the drop down, already created a login. We're just going to create a user. This is old standard. We're not using contained users. And then I'm just going to give it DBL Rona because I'm going to be creating tables, right? So at this point, we have basically no tables. Awesome. Okay. So let's quickly go to the very first one. It says initialize a project and then how to seed tables. That's what we want to talk about. Well, let's talk about how to initialize a project, right? So I'm going to open up the very first project, which I have 3 versions of it. Library 1, hit open, select folder. We're going to go into this a minute. And we're going to keep on refining this. Project 1 is like, hey, the very first simple seed. Project 2 is going to be like, hey, I'm going to show you everything I can do, kind of. And project 3 is like, hey, this is how I would do it, okay? And again, this is a very simple database, but it's kind of learning, okay? So we can go up one, right? And one of the things we talked about is some requirements, right? So the first requirement is, let's look at some notes. is DBT installed? Well, there's a command called pip show, right? And if I type DBT, packages not found, pip list. Okay. Okay, so there is a bunch of them. I don't know why pip show didn't work, so let's try it again. How about we'll do DBT core. And so this tells us what's based upon, right? So we got some adapters, right? And we got some actually installed. DBT for Fabric and DBT for SQL Server. Now, we're using a SQL Server database in Azure, but it still uses the core SQL package, okay? Now, I am at the command lines, right? And a lot of this is done from the command line. So at this point, if we look, we can see that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 directories, right? There's a logs directory and so on. So if I did dbt and everything init, right? And it's going to ask me for a name. So I'm just going to call it lib for short. And what it's going to do, it's going to create it and it says, hey, what do you want? Fabric or SQL Server? I'm going to say, hey, it's SQL Server, right? And it's going to ask me for the host name. So, okay, let's do connect. And what we can do is do this guy. And let's go over here and paste it in here. Okay, it's 1433, right? Dev name, I'm just going to call it J minor, and I'm just going to call it foobar. And database, library. Okay, and just do one, right? And it basically just wrote a profile, okay? Now there's two ways to do profiles. You can put them in your project, or you can put them where this command did, okay? This is the better way to do it. I'm going to blow away because it goes here first. And I don't want it to be going there, so I'm going to go cd to this directory and remove it. Why didn't it like me? Cd slash
You need to
cd.
remove the YAML, I think, just the directory.
Yeah, it didn't like me because maybe it's not in quotes, but I'm going to go this way and it should be there, cb.dbt. And there we go. So we can see there's a profile there, right? And so I'm just going to delete the profiles. Okay. Well, let's take a look. Is it profiles.yaml? Here we go. Okay. So I'm just going to cd that. And what we'll do is go to open up the folder. So if we open up the folder that we just created, this lib, hit select folder, let's take a look. Going to do a new terminal. Okay. We can see that it created a sample project file, but nothing's really configured here, right? So it's this name is the same thing as the name of the profile. What does that mean? Well, we can have a profile.yaml, but inside the actual name has to be YAML. These are the paths. So there's a models path, there's a macro. So if you're like bringing in packages, that's where macros go. Models, this is where you actually do your first selecting. So let's take a look at it. Hey, we're materializing a table. It's using a CTE. Oh, cool. We're doing source data. So this is just samples, right? This is stuff we're going to throw away. I just want to show you what you get when you initially create it. We can also say, hey, anything that's in a lib directory is materialized as a view. So we're not going to get a table. It's going to take anything from, say, that source and make views out of it, okay? So basically what we have here is a nice starter, but really it's not that helpful. You're going to have to do some configuration with it. So I'm going to show you how you can do the first version of it and it's ready configured. Okay, so we're going to go to V1. And again, using it, init is the very first way, or download Chinook and modify it. Okay, so now we can see what the problem of putting profiles here is. Guess what? It has the username and password, or if we added service counts here. When you check this in, you hook it to GitHub, you're going to be checking in this, not this confidential information. So that's why putting it in that directory under the user is a better place to put it. But for demo, I just want to show you it's here, okay? So let's start with the project because everything starts with the project and go up to the top, and I commented it and I actually kind of cleaned it up too, right? So we can see this is library because that's the name of it. The profile is going to be library. So see at the top, this has to match here. It could have been foo if we wanted to, right? It just the name has to match, okay? The PATs. Well, models is where we're going to do all the modeling. Analysis. This is where we can give like analysts pre-canned queries like select star from loans, or what are the loans that haven't returned books yet, right? Test paths. This is where we write tests. We'll talk about it. There's seed paths. Macros, like I said, for instance, if we wanted to do a surrogate key, I suggest not doing it in SQL because this is multi-threaded. It might, if you go ahead and you say select the max record ID from a table, give me return +1 back, it's probably gonna come up with gobbledygook because it's using threads, right? So there's a thread safe version called DBT utils. Okay, I go over that in Chinook. I'm not going to go over it tonight because there's not enough time, but we'll go over snapshots. Okay, clean targets. Well, when we build everything, guess what? It creates everything in here. Okay, and why is there a graph? Well, we're going to talk about DAGs eventually. Okay, and packages. It will clean out the packages if we did a clean command. And then this one's saying in the seeds, okay, for library, the schema is raw. What does that mean? Well, you got a base path versus the modified path, okay? So the base path always comes from the profiles. So it's saying schema is data. If I refine it and say raw here, it's going to be data underscore raw. Cool, because it's raw tables. And then I'll say book 001. If I didn't do anything and you name all your files uniquely like book 001, they'll all be in data, well, be book 01. And if you don't put anything, it'll be DBO, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we want snapshots to be under the schema snapshots, faults, and then we have some models. But we're not going to get into that because we're doing siege, right? So first thing is, how do we know if this profile is set up correctly? Well, if we installed everything correctly, the very first command you want to do other than it is something called DBT debug, okay? And before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the logs directory and delete the log. Okay, it's going to move this, and let's run this. Oops, come over here. Okay, cool. So we can zoom in on this, and what did it already first said, hey, guess what? I know where the profiles is because it's in library v1, and here's my profile because I picked it up. I also picked up the project YAML file, so these two YAML files are very important. Okay. Oh yeah, guess what? The adapter we use in the SQL Server, and that's coming from the profiles, right? If we look at the profiles, it says type SQL Server, so we're using that adapter. And it's telling the version, right? It said it found those two, great. And then it's using the database's library, schema's data, right? It's using this user. Client D, it's not using a service principal, so okay. Authentication types is SQL, okay. And again, you have to remember how you're going to do this. Like, for instance, if you're going to run DBT from like GitHub Actions or something like that, or from a VM, okay, a container, to run the transformations on a schedule, then, you know, you would have to figure out what type of authentication that your company's support, right? So service principal is one way to do it. You can't do two-factor authentication because, you know, you're running it. There's no one to punch a button, right? If it's GitHub Actions. This is encrypted, trust in the certificate, number of retries, port number. Okay, and guess what? It tested perfectly, okay? Now, the main reason why I want to clear it is I want to show you the log. This is where everything is happening. And this is really important because if you're debugging something that's broken, okay, then this is where you can kind of get a hint of why the SQL is wrong or why it thinks it's wrong and how to fix it, okay? So we can see that it went ahead and has the same information here and it connected correctly. Okay, cool. I'm gonna pause. Any questions? Everyone staying awake? Okay.
Yeah, we're still awake. I
Awesome.
think that yeah, someone said DBT equals derivative tool. Yes, of course. The sensitive info can be stored in environment variables.
Yes, it can be. It can be too.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. Paul, you got a
I don't
question?
see any question. Yeah, no. It
Yes.
was just a comment from Valentin. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Christian.
No, good.
Let's
Good.
see. With Databricks, there's something called DABs. Is it kind of similar, but it's more extended, John? Than DBT?
I don't know about DABs, but guess what? There is a DBT adapter for Databricks. We can talk about that at the end if you want.
Perfect. Thanks.
You're welcome. So under seeds, we created those 3 samples, right? So we need to get some sample data in to show you how to transform, right? And like I said, DBT is not used for EL, it's used for just doing the T. So we have our 3 ones right here, okay? And the idea is it's using a DAG, a directed acyclic DAG graph for every single file. So file naming is very important. I like using numbers at each location, like raw could be 001, stage first version of it could be 002, the next version 003, all the way up to eventually we get Martin and you'll say dim and faxed, right? So everything will be named correctly. Why do we want to do that? Well, if I go back down here, I want to seed it now, right? And again, I have to find where I am. I'll type CLS. I could type DBT and then seed, and it's going to do everything. But we can also rebuild a piece too, which using a DAG. So for instance, if I set this up correctly, I didn't break anything, this is just going to run one table, okay? Awesome, it worked, right? And now what we can do is I am not going to connect with this version, but I'm going to hit refresh. And we can see books is there. And if we select, we'll have 25 rows. Okay, cool. Now I could repeat this and say, okay, do the next one. Or I can say, hey, guess what? I just want to seed everything, right? So if we run seed, now it's going to run everything in that directory, okay? And so what it did is it dropped everything in the rows and it recreated it, right? So now we have 3 different tables. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to talking about materialization because there's several types. And again, these are the commands. I'll put it in, all this will zipped up into my GitHub repo, but pip show dbt-core should definitely tell you what's there. Pip version, Python version, she'll tell you the version, 3.7 above. Mine was 3.12. If you did it in the current directory DBT init, you're going to mix directories, so you don't do that. CD up one and then do init on whatever it is. Interesting thing, naming conventions. It needs just alpha and numerics, no hashes or anything. If you did like library-001, even though I'm renaming it once it's been deployed, the tool does not like that. Okay, so I'm going to save it. And we'll go back to the slide deck. And so we talked about this. Go here. So again, there's multiple versions of this tool. What I'm showing you is the command line version that goes with VS Code, okay? We talked about deploying to Azure SQL, but could have been Databricks, could have been Fabric, right? And we talked about seeds, okay? So the command line, there's a bunch of commands, right? We're going to talk about snapshots next, and we're going to talk about the run command, okay? Those are the main 2 commands you'll be using, but there's also, like, we could say, hey, the data has to be really fresh. If it's not fresh within the last 12 hours, guess what? Generate an error. Or guess what? We've spent a lot of time building this DAG, and we've documented everything. Generate documents of my model, right? It'll do all that for you, which is awesome because you're now doing self-documentation. Okay, so materialization, okay? It's how you take the data and do something with it, right? So we have tables. It's a physical table, and it's faster data retrieval, right? We have views. Well, it's a table based on SQL, and it's slow, right? It has to get compiled, right? Incremental. Incremental is great because there's 2 ways to do it. We can say, usually comes with a where clause, and it says, get me the latest version of this column from the target, okay? And then go back to the source, and anything that's greater than equal to that date, say, or ID, go get it, right? So that's an incremental, okay? Ephemeral. Ephemeral is a placeholder, and it's used for downstream modeling. So for instance, in this example, I'm going to show you how to do ephemeral for a date table, okay? And materialized views are not supported. And last but not least, it's not considered, okay, part of materialization from the documentation, but snapshots are really important because they do slowly change in dimensions type 2, okay? So with that said, let's do the next demo. Okay, so appropriately, I'm just going to open up the folder and go to V2 and hit select. Okay, wow, we got a lot more going on here, right? So we got our profiles, nothing's really changed. Let's look at our projects. Okay, we left off here, right? So seeds is gonna go to raw. So when we deploy it, which we already did, we're gonna have data on the raw and then whatever the name of the object is. So we have 3 objects there. Snapshots. Well, anything that's not seeded, you can by default stores it as a column store. And we know column stores don't perform really well for small data. So you want to turn it off. So we're going to turn it off for snapshots. Staging, I'm going to, just to show you, I'm going to make it a view, okay? In Mart, I'm going to make it a table and it's materialized as a column store, okay? So let's look at each one of these. So now, this is project 2. I just want to make sure. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. We brought in the dates table. So now we have a larger table. It's a couple thousand rows, I think. Yep, 1,500. Okay. We have the 3 tables before. Okay, cool. So we can do a build if we want. Snapshots. We're only going to do 1 snapshot. So this snapshot, okay, there's 2 ways to do it. You can do a check, and what's the other way? Trying to remember it. Date, I think it is. And so the snapshot is for check is, guess what? We don't have a date and that's last modified and say, hey, if it's greater than the last date or it's newer, then pick it up. This one says we're going to do a check, and it's based upon a unique key. So it's going to say, hey, member ID is our unique key for the members table. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check 1, 2, 3, 4 different columns. We're going to compare the previous row given that member ID to the current row with the member ID. And we're going to go ahead and do a snapshot, okay? So it's gonna, this reference means that we're gonna create member 3, I call it snapshot 3, but we're referring to member 01, which is right here, our raw table, okay? And I'm going slow. If there's any questions, please raise your hand. So you can do this in YAML too. I did this all in strictly SQL to show you can do it in SQL, okay? There's a config, and the config allows you to override what you might have previously. So for instance, this one's saying that I want to have book 01, and I want to call it the stage schema, and it's a table, okay? And we have books 002, it's incremental, and we want to select from dates 001. And incremental was saying, hey, where the ID is greater than the max ID. And we'll show how this works, okay? We'll do a demo in which we'll run just dates and we'll put 1 row in and see if it picks it up, and it'll pick it up, okay? Dates 3. Well, this is this ephemeral table, okay? We'll build that and show how it doesn't even materialize, okay? But it's there, you can use it later on. Say we could do in dim dates down here, and we could change this to select star from ephemeral, and it will build this table, and guess what? It'll have 1 row in it, okay? Members, okay? This members is a view, okay? And row counts, okay. So this is a materialized view. It's not supported in here. It's supported by Snowflake. My friend Matt works with Snowflake all the time, and they support it. And basically, I wanted to do is, hey, give me all 3 tables and get me a record count, okay? So right now, what we can do is, and the power of DBT is we can just rebuild everything, right? So I can go here. This is some testing, right? But I have 2 little procedures I wrote, right? Or, blocks of code, declare, var max, and basically it says just drop all the tables and drop all the views, right? So if we hit refresh, guess what? We shouldn't have anything, okay? Awesome. So I'm gonna minimize this, and we're gonna build it using larger commands than I did in the past, okay? So remember I said you can build it at the singleton level, which is just a particular file. You can also build it at the directory level, right? So if we do DBT and then seed, now it's going to create 4 tables, right? It's going to create books, dates 1, loans, and members. Okay. And if we go ahead and now hit a refresh, Oops, wrong one. I thought I hit refresh, but refresh. There we go. So we have four of them, and we can take a quick look at dates. And we have the data there. So we have week and so on, right? Awesome. Next one, we have stage. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Let's run it. So the way to run stage, let's see, this is members. Is members 2 not built upon it? Okay, so I don't think this is going to blow up because I think it's going to blow up because of row counts, okay? So DBT run, right? And now these under model are directories, and because of the directories, we can run at the directory level, okay? So I'm going to run stage. Cool thing about it is, I'm just forgot one command. So excited to run this. Got the S. Okay, so it ran basically, you know, books, it ran dates, it ran members, and row counts. It failed. And then it didn't run, okay, if we look, it didn't run dates 3. And why is that? Well, dates 3 is ephemeral. We can't use it until we go down the path, right? So what we could do is we could go to dates here, and let's change this to dates 3, okay? And let's see if it creates a table just for that. Now I'll change it back in a minute. Let me see, file, save, make sure it's saved before we do it. And if we do DBT, try it, run, and we're gonna do a select now of dim underscore dates, and then we're gonna take a look. Semicolon, why does it not like it? Oh, I've never tested this one out, so there you go, other than try that. Okay, cool. Let's look what it did behind the scenes, okay? And then we'll get into the final output of it, right? So behind the scenes, it's logged, right? So if we come back here, okay, cool. Now what it does is it basically says create view data mart, dim dates, DBT, temp, DBT, view as, and it's creating it from a CTE as, and then it selects basically this as the CTE, and then it selects star from the CTE, and then it executes it, okay? So if we go ahead now and hit a refresh, right, we're gonna have a bunch of tables, okay, and staged, right? So let's look, we had books, okay, select, and did books, fine. We have dates, right? What is a view? We had one view, right? We had members, right? Let's double check that. Members was a view. Okay, cool. We also did ephemeral, so we couldn't instantiate it in stage, but it instantiated in dates. Let's take a look at that one. So now if we hit refresh, there should be a mart table, right? And there should be only one row in it, right? Okay, cool. And we failed on the materialized. Okay, so everything's expected, okay? So for this run it, and we're gonna rebuild it from scratch again and show you how easy it is to do all the transformations, right? We're just gonna rename this and call it TXT, so it's not gonna pick it up anymore, okay? And this guy, we're gonna go ahead and call this dates 2. What do we do in dates 2? Oh, we did the incremental. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the incremental, right? We did dates. How do we test the incremental, right? Let's see if I hopefully have some test data here. If not, I'll make it really quick. Oh yeah. So at this point, we can show dates ones here, right? And so these are our last, you know, ones, right, of 2026, right? Let's say we want to put 27 in, right? Okay, we can do that, right? So we're going to insert in here. Okay, we get one row. So now if we go here, we have it. Awesome. Let's see what the incremental said. The incremental for dates, okay, which was here, dates 2, said get the max ID, okay, and from the max ID, from this, which is the current table, which is the target, select from the dates table, and if that ID on dates table is greater than the max ID in the other one, then bring them in, okay? So at this point, if we go ahead and we look at date 002, it's not going to be there because we haven't run the process yet. And the cool thing about it is we could truncate the table and just put one row in it. It'll still run, right? So now we're going to run select, right? And we're going to run dates 02, okay? And we're going to show how to do an incremental. Okay, so it ran it. And in reality, behind the scene, we can take a look if we can find the SQL. It did bring it over. And how did it do that, right? Well, if we look at the DBT code, right? Let's go down and look, and what it did is it insert into ID select star from, and it got this temporary DB2 dates. How did it do that? Well, it did a mapping, right? Use row number. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Okay, so right here, we're selecting from DBT, right? So we're making a view, and let me omit it. And there, so the main thing is we probably could spend more time on this, but I'm gonna skip past this. But what it's doing is it's basically unioning the existing and the new table, and then figuring out what's new and creating a view off that, and then inserting the data. But the main thing is, guess what? It did it for you. It did an incremental load, right? Last thing is snapshot, right? What is a snapshot? To run snapshots, we type DBT and then snapshot, right? Now we could do just DBT. It won't do it, but we could do a select here if we wanted to, right? So we're going to do snapshot, and that's going to be members up, okay? Okay, so if we take a look at members now, really quickly, refresh, and then we'll build out Mart, and then we'll call it a day, and then I'll show you the next thing, which is really important. So slowly changing dimensions. You want to have, usually it's called effective dating, right? You have an ID, so this is your surrogate key. When was it updated? And you want it valid from one point to another, right? And so how do we do that? Well, this is member 1. Well, let's make a change and let's see if it actually works, right? So we have raw data member 1 here. Let's see if I did do a test for this. Maybe I did not. Okay, I did. So if we look at number 1, we can see it's expired. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, set this person to active and set the date to today. It's not 2024, February 24th. We're going to give it today's date. And now we're going to run it, and we've updated just the row, right? And we said, whoops, this guy. That's the target. Okay, cool. Let's run the snapshot again. And again, all this you would have to write complex SQL code to do it. Not that complex, but you know, it would spend some time. This tool is meant for the novice. You don't have to know anything. You just have to do a little SQL, and guess what? It automatically end dated the other one. So it said it was valid from the 28th was when we created it to now, and we got the new, and we got the expired as the old, and we have the new. Okay, cool. Last but not least, to end up this project, and then we'll go into testing and documentation to wrap up the whole talk, is Mart. So we have the books, very simple, because there's no slowly changing dimensions. This one, guess what? We're going to bring in dates, and we're going to convert the ID, which was a join date key, with join date to a date key. Loans, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to bring in IDs for both borrow date, due date, and return date. So typical stuff that you would be doing for adding dates, right? A date dimension. So now we're going to type DBT run, right? And then what we're going to do is do Mart. And I guess tonight I'm for some reason a little tired. I'm not doing the S, so let's do this. Okay. So if we hit refresh, I'll show you the fact table. It's probably the most weirdest. It doesn't have really much in it except for IDs, right? But we have a bunch of IDs, okay? So at this point, I'm gonna open up for any questions. If not, we're gonna talk about the last one. Okay, we're gonna open up the folder. And we're gonna go to example 3. That's the very last one. And we're gonna tear everything down, right? Because this is the power of DBT. You can just tear things down and rebuild it. Okay, so we're gonna do these. Any questions, Christian?
I don't see any.
Okay.
In
Cool.
the chat. I guess you are loud and clear, John.
Awesome. It's not rocket science. The cool thing about this is this. You can have citizen developers do this, and you can use some, there's some actual libraries out there to say, hey, guess what? They need to supply like a schema. And if they don't give me the schema with the table name and description, that's your data dictionary, you reject it, right? And you can set up a bunch of guidelines, and if they follow them, guess what? They can do their own coding. So this offloads a lot of this to like the citizen developer. Go ahead, Paul.
One thing that you were showing was pretty simple, and that's for the just a demo. But what about audit, security, and all that kind of like big corporation and infosec departments will ask? And I have a lot of questions. The usability, and then they confront it a bit. So I just want your take on it.
So I have a friend that's doing this at a gas company. They probably have more money than your company.
Yeah, for sure. No. That's why I'm saying.
Okay. And so they're doing all the drilling wells and through this, and they have no problem with it, right? So again, it's the same things that you have to remember, right? The things get checked in. You're not really dealing with anything other than everything that you're doing is staying in the same container, same warehouse, same data mart, right? And you get to dictate by the connection string what account's doing it, right? And so the question is, how do you do it, right? And what I mean by that is, how do you break up the project? Because you can have multiple projects and run them on a different schedule, or you can have a single. My friend, the way they did it, he wanted to break it up more than they did because they have so many models. Like if you look at files, they have like 900 different files. There's a lot of SQL going on in his environment. They broke it up by region, so there's a North American and there's Australian, but that's something for you to do. But that's a whole separate talk. We can talk at the end if you want, and I'll stay on for a few minutes to chat with you, Paul. Okay. So let's talk about the last two topics I want to get into: testing data, right, and talking about also documentation, because documentation is really important. How many people have gone to a company, maybe your own company, right? And you're been there for say 3-5 years, and guess what? Stuff's been around for 15 years, and you look at it, you have no clue what it's doing, right? And this is the cool thing: documentation. You can document these models. Okay. There's also testing. Um, Christian will tell you this, right? How many data warehouses have enforce like referential integrity? They don't, right? Even in Snowflake, it's there. It's sugar syntax for the analytic processor, right? The algorithm that figures out the plan, but it doesn't enforce it, right? So we can do not null, unique, accepted values. We can say, hey, genre, we're doing books, right? Is in tech or whatever, relationships, and we'll talk about custom, okay? And custom's really cool too, because you can make your own tests up, and that is awesome, I think. So let me see if this all fell apart, which hopefully I deleted everything, which I did. Awesome. So we got a clean slate again, nothing in our database. Okay. This one, what I've done is, let's take a look at it. We've added some more files, okay? There are things called properties or schema files. And what we can do is, I actually used ChatGPT or Claude to do this. Control I, say create me DBT YAML that describes columns as well as data types for this T-SQL, cut and paste the T-SQL in from the prior environment, and guess what? It created all my documentation for you. Now, it might not be perfect, but it's a good starting point, right? And again, this is a very simple demo, so we have everything is snapshots. These three are snapshots, right? Here's our raw data coming in, and I happen to be bringing loans in as a seed, but in reality, if this was, productions, loans would be use Fivetran. You'd be using some type of ETL tool, your favorite one, right? We also have loans 02, and that is using just basically incremental merge. It's merging on loan ID. So it takes a 2 and says, hey, guess what? If you get a match, take the new record. That's all it's doing for you. And you can also do this with a date timestamp, okay? But I'm not, okay? Last but not least, we have our facts now. The interesting thing is you can see I'm selecting instead of star just the fields because remember now books too has like those slowly changing dimension artifacts, right? It has the surrogate key, valid 2, and so on. Dates, same thing. Members, we're pulling a thing, and we're saying, I took a really easy way out on this. I basically said, hey, where the current record, val2 is null and the date is null. So I'm saying, hey, well, give me the most recent record, right? If there's other records, but you might want to do in between, given some type of date that would be the driver for that record, okay? And the same thing was here, okay? So with that said, okay, I'm just gonna do the big command, which is a DBT build, right? It's gonna build everything up. Now remember, when it's doing this, it's doing it in batches of 400. Built the whole data model, right, in seconds. Awesome. And again, it's a toy data model. I wasn't expecting it to take forever. But let's take a look. So this time, if we look, there's no views, right? Also this time, if you look, I told it, hey, guess what? You can do column store if you want. So it's doing column store indexes. So if this was huge data, this would be great. For DIMS, probably not, but I did it anyways. This should show you. We got our rows here, and we got our snapshots, and we have our loans, okay? So do I have... Okay, so this is one of them. I want to bring the other one up. Let me find it. Again, I've been doing a lot of work. You're actually getting a little tasting of some stuff I did for Data Popcorn. Those 3 videos, 5-minute videos, will be coming out in March. But okay, so we can see right now that this author, okay, is tagged, right? And what we can do is we can check for duplicate values. How do we do that, right? Well, it's a YAML, right? So again, let me double check. It's in book 01, right? So it's going to be the properties of the seeds, right? And let's go up. So in here, we said that book identifier has to be not null and it has to be unique, okay? So now if I go ahead and insert a second value, okay, I'm going to have a non-unique condition, right? Which is not good, right? So now if I go ahead and say I had a data model and I was importing stuff, we can just run DBT test, right? And it's going to do all the tests. And it's going to tell you which one's a bad data. And it says, oops, it failed, right? And what did it fail with? And you can output this to it, but it's basically saying that the unique books has failed. Okay, I was expecting that. Nulls. Well, if we select from this, there shouldn't be any null values, but I'm going to take the same thing and give it a null ID, right? Okay, it's one row. And now if we run the same thing, I'm running all the tests. This one's going to fail. Okay, so now I have 2 failures. And that makes sense because, I just told it that's what I wanted to do. Okay, let's move this down. Let's go over here. Accepted values. So for the genre under books, we actually put a list, right? So if we go down to genre, it can be biography, fiction, history, science fiction, tech. Now I'm going to say is, hey, guess what? It's health. And now I can select from it, right? And we can see we made that change. Okay, but there's two of them, right? So not only we had it, but we duplicated it. So we have 2 errors. Now we're going to have a third error. Okay. So these are all the tests that you can do, which are really good. One thing I was surprised was there's a bug, and if anyone figures this out, tell me. I'm pretty smart, but I don't know where this came in. Referential integrity. So what we're going to say is in loans, set the book ID to 99, which there isn't because there's only 25 books, and they were associated, like loan 1 was book 1, right? And so now if we go here, we type DBT tests, we should get additional 1, right? So we should have 4 errors. But guess what? We don't, right? We get accepted values, not null, and unique. So for some reason, even though if you look at the documentation, and this says data tests, relationships, arguments, it's a reference to books 1, book ID, right? That's the data test, right? And this book ID is in loans. It should be broken, right? But it still says it's working fine, okay? So there are a couple tests that you can do that. These are all YAML tests, meaning that based upon the schema or the properties that you set up, okay? So to fix this, what we're going to do is DBT seed, right? We're just going to reseed the data, right? And we're going to talk about custom tests. So you can do your own custom tests by putting them in the test directory, okay? So we're going to minimize models, minimize seeds, and where is test? Here we go. So we got 2. One is the one we just did, which was a referential text, and it says select star from loans where book ID is not in here. Well, let's go back and set that, right, to 99. This didn't fail on the YAML. Will it fail now on a custom test? Okay. And where am I? Sorry. DBT. Oops. DBT test and select. And what we're going to do is this time we're going to do loans to books. Oops, didn't like me. Come on, loans. Do the arrow. Run this. And sure enough, it failed because it knew that there was one row that was wrong, right? And if we go ahead now and reseed this, so we'll do a DVC seed and run it again, it won't. And then the last one I'm going to show you is a really cool thing that for testing is custom tests, because sometimes you might want a test that says a condition, right? So one of the conditions is like overdue books, right? Tell me anything that's greater than, this is 90, let's make it 30, okay? And let's close out all this because it's just garbage I've been talking about. So get rid of that. And now what we can do is we can also, forget it, I had it a minute ago, test, dash select, overdue 30 days. Okay, there's another thing called store failures, and this is a really good feature. It will output any failures to a table. So I want to know all the people that have had books out there for more than 30 days. Now I can say, okay, go to this audit table, okay, and from this audit table, show me the failures, right? So now I can go here and execute, and we can see there's 7 rows. And if we go back to the data test, we can run this, and there should be 7 rows, okay? So the very last thing is documentation, right? Documentation's really important. There's a lot of times I go into these projects and they don't have any documentation. So it's very simple. DBT docs generate, DBT docs serve, okay? And what it does is it creates an HTML. I'll show you in a minute, and then we'll close it up and I'll ask any questions at the very end, right? So DBT docs, right? And then we just generate it. And what it's going to do is, again, everything gets dumped into the target directory. So now what it's going to do, it's going to create a graph over here for actually showing you the examples or the documentation. And then what we're going to do is we're going to type serve. And if we run the serve, it's actually going to bring up DBT, and then we can look at stuff. And it'll show us all the tests too. So for instance, one of the things we looked at was the seeds, right? And on the seeds on the books, we had some tests. For instance, book ID, we had a unique and null test. We also in genre had a accepted values test. Under loans, right? Oops, for some reason it didn't pick up that referential test. And maybe I have to call them, maybe that I'm using a wrong keyword that's not picking it up. I can't believe they have it in documentation that's wrong, but just haven't had time. But we have all a snapshot. We have our custom tests. It actually, unfortunately, is picking up the DBT fabric, which I'm not using, okay? But let's finish out the presentation. So why is the data build tool cool? Well, it's cool because now I'm working on like a Back to the Future project in which I'm working for a company and they have SSIS packages. Okay. And nothing's done consistently. Sometimes they do the work in raw files, sometimes it's in a staging table, sometimes it goes right to the target table, but they modify it at the source. The cool thing about DBT is that the data has to be loaded into some type of raw tables. From there, you build your warehouse in different stages, right? You name the stages, just make sure that you know, they're consistent and that they're unique because of the DAG, right? You can have power users learn the SQL and YAML. They can be productive. Several different ways. We can also test for data quality. We showed that. The whole project is a directed graph, so unique names are important. The property files allow for documentation. In short, it makes it easy to build out these data models. The Chinook, I just came up with that project. Take a look at it. One of the things I didn't talk about is what we need to do some really, really complex processing. Like maybe we had to do some lookups or something on a table, and you can't do that in SQL, but say we want to do a REST API call. You can write your own models using Python as long as it returns back a Python's pandas data frame. You can do anything. So we could do lookups on this. We could say, hey, you know, those loans, look up all the libraries in New York City and see if we can find a book, right? That could be a possibility, right? This URL goes over the DBT adapter and how to configure it with DBT from the labs. This one goes over the Fabric Warehouse adapter, which I'm going to talk about. And this talks about jobs. Jobs are not there yet. I tried importing the Chinook sample. I even converted it for Fabric and it failed utterly, okay? So with that said, thank you for watching and I'm going to open it up for questions.
So, John, I have one for you here. I want to know, you said that your project blew up, right?
Yes.
So, what is the feedback that you have from Fabric team?
The feedback,
I know
I will show
NDA,
you,
but
I will show you what I came up with and LinkedIn. Let's see if I can bring it up and I'll show you my LinkedIn post and you can read about it.
I saw it. Yeah,
Yeah, so
I saw
this
it.
is
Yeah.
the one right here. It's not yet. And what I did is I logged 2 bugs, okay? I haven't posted them yet, but there's 2 bugs out
Yeah.
there. And so I have a meeting with them next week, and
Perfect.
hopefully they can get this fixed in the future. Like I said, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either use a cloud service to run this stuff in, or you can run it on premise and build it yourself. My friend who works, like I said, for a gas company, they're using Kubernetes containers and they're running DBT in the Kubernetes containers on AWS to deploy to Snowflake. That's how they're doing it. However, I just showed you how to do it locally. I could just set this up with Windows Scheduler, and if as long as I had the ETL program that brought in new data into the RAW, it would build a model for me. The second way to do it is to run a service, right? DBT Labs has their own service called the new engine. You know how they call engines different things? I think it's called Fusion, but again, I might be wrong. It's written in Rust. It runs in the cloud, right? And what Microsoft's trying to do is they're trying to come up with their own version that runs in the cloud. A lot of companies support it. It's supported by Databricks. It's supported by Snowflake. So it's a tool that you're going to see more and more people use for sure.
Okay. So, but yeah, Microsoft, it's in the preview, right? With the Microsoft. Are you
Doesn't
using
work. Doesn't
Airflow?
work yet. I give it a thumbs down if
I
you
know.
want. I'll give it a
That's
thumbs
fine.
up hopefully in
That's
a
fine, right?
few weeks or
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
a month or two.
yeah. So, did you use Airflow to schedule your work with DBT?
There is also a DBT new, you know how they have activities, a new activity for
Yeah,
the data pipeline.
yeah,
And I guess,
yeah.
again, if you saw in the Microsoft thread, don't use it yet. So it's exciting.
Of course.
It is
It's in
coming,
preview.
but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not there yet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I
Any
wish I
other
could give you
question? I
some
think
good
Ballard.
news.
Yeah, that's fine. You will get as soon as you get some answer from Microsoft, you will share it, right, on your
I will
blog.
be doing
So
an
that's
update
perfect.
saying, hey, it's ready and my Trinity project worked. If
Yeah,
you're interested in learning more, take a look at the Jaffle project. It's in
yeah.
its maturity. Let me share this one more time and you can, if, am I sharing? Probably not sharing yet. Where is my share? I should stop sharing.
Val,
There we
Val,
go.
I'm sorry, Valentin. You're out of
Yes.
mute. Do you have any question or
Uh,
comments? It's been
you
a
know
long time
what?
without you, right?
A long time isn't. Yeah, but I use this tool and I really like it. We just it's
Yeah.
amazing working. Yes, like improve a lot. We have like a gain 30% like in development. We're able to take like
Yeah.
people who just graduate, and very cool. I use it with Databricks, but with Fabric, if you want to use with Fabric and Warehouse, it's not a problem. You go DBT Core, how John show us, and you just create your DevOps, pipelines, and
Hmm.
it's working very nice. You don't need to wait to be available in a platform Fabric. Okay, you can use it outside without any problem. The same thing for Snowflake was added, I think, 2 or 3 months ago. You have directly like in Snowsite, you have like a project, DBT. You can create yourself. You can connect to GitHub, etc. But it's not how I use it and how I see it. For me, it doesn't create a problem. How long the adapter is working correctly, like the snapshot is working, you can run the models without any problem. I don't see a problem for me to be like just in Fabric. Okay, I can connect to Fabric. I can create my layers. Let's say if I'm using like a medallion architecture, I can create my layers without any problem. And I can like running with a scheduler. Like I really like Airflow. You can create like DAGs. And if
Yeah.
you have like jobs, like give an example, have like a function who will produce like a file and copy on a blob storage. You in Airflow, you schedule first job, first task, and after the second task would be you run the models in DBT without any problem. It's very cool. It would be nice to work directly in an interface in Fabric, but it will be few
coming.
months. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
But honestly,
Yeah.
it's a keeper. Like what you want to do, like a transformations, and do you
Mhm.
want to like agile? You have a team. Everyone is like creating futures in VS Code. They can run their models. They can just merge after in dev, and put all
Yeah.
together. It's very, very nice. Maybe John, you didn't touch the environment stuff. You can have multiple environments. By default, you create a dev, but you can like copy paste, what you have, and you can create like a like test environment and prod. And when you make like DBT run dash target, you put like test, the deployment is going into test. Okay. It's very, very powerful and very
You
easy
can use
for
tags
me.
too. If you got a lot of
Yeah,
objects, you
yeah,
can use
it's a lot.
tags, but
and it's so complex. They have like pre-hooks. You can run select like SQL before you can create even a security. If you want to create your groups, you can put it like in pre-hooks. You know, very powerful. I really like it. Yes.
You know how you have webhooks? They have something called cooks, just like Airflow, and then like you were talking about, you can run code before and after. So I think
Yeah.
it's, you know, like my friend's been doing this for 3 years, and that's the only thing he's done. The cool thing is, guess what? You're doing it in SQL, and you know, as long as someone loads the data, whatever the tool it is to get it there, the rest of it is consistent, and you know, you don't need much expertise to get it to work. The big thing is tuning it, right? If there is some issues, then yeah, maybe you'll have to rethink it. But yeah, I really like it. It's a great tool out there.
And what I like is the dependence. You know, when you run, you say like DBT run, he knows itself. Well, you know, he know the dependency. Like if I have like a table in silver, he know he'll go like in bronze, make it a bronze first, and you know, go into silver. It's you just don't need to. If you create like a solution using like notebooks, okay, you have to always to take care. What is the order? I forgot a notebook. You know, you can lose a lot of time. But with DBT, you have a lineage, you know from where is coming the data, where is go. You have a documentation. If you don't have like you don't need to buy a very expensive tool, you know, you just document your models and you just create your docs and it's generated by JSON file and you can put somewhere like a portal, you know, and you have a kind of data catalog. You can search your terms, you know, you have dependency, even you can see by SQL what was executed. Another thing what I like it the tests, okay, because every time you hear, yeah, we have a project, we don't have tests, we have to buy a solution to do tests. You just use DBT. It's having like 300 macros to do tests, and it's like supporting a lot of packages. You know, they are very rich in this direction, in this point. Yeah. Even great expectation is supported.
Definitely. I only wrote 2 blogs because there's so much going on in Fabric lately that I was gonna do other stuff, but I might write some more for SQL Server on some of the topics you talked about, which was, you know, how to schedule it, you know, using DevOps maybe versus GitHub, as well as environments and code repos. But yeah, again, there's so many details you can put out there, but the idea is to try to keep it to an hour.
Yeah.
And I think I did a good job. So
Yeah,
Yes.
you did it. But you know what? In one
Thank
hour,
you,
you are
John.
not
Yeah.
able to. We are not able to cover everything. You know, it's
No,
really, it's very like time consumer to
it should
prepare
be a day
everything.
workshop, right?
definitely.
But I think it should be a day workshop, right? To
I
cover
have
Actually,
most
a,
of it.
I'm
I
speaking in SQL Saturday Houston. So if you're coming, I'll be doing a pre-con.
Yeah,
I have a,
Houston.
yeah. I still have
Awesome.
like some articles like because I work like in a project with the Data Vault, you know,
Yep.
and they have macros for Data Vault too. I have him like if you look like in my profile in Medium, you know, medium.com. I have like this type of projects working with DBT and macros like Data Vault 2.0.
Yeah.
It's I really like the tool, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, but that
you know,
wasn't the cloud, right? That wasn't the cloud. I think there is something that the star schema is the best way, right? That wasn't the cloud is very intensive and can cause a lot of CUs, right?
You know what?
Consumption units. Yeah.
If you force this one because it's you have a thread like in configuration file you have thread you can put it like 7.
Mhm.
He will try to create like 7 jobs in the same time like to create like models like in 7 times 8 times depend how much you wanna know. John he put just one. Okay, this means he'll do
Yes.
one model after model. But if you force it, like you have like a given example, you go in Snowflake or Databricks and you choose like a medium cluster, you know, warehouse. You put 7, 8 models in parallel. You'll be
Mhm.
impressed how fast it is. Okay.
Okay.
Data Vault will be like a kind of staging, you know, persistent staging, historical stuff, you know. And after when you want to go to create like a dimensional
The
model,
information model. Yes.
you go in information mart, you have point in time, there's something like this. You can always have stories. Everything is like in historical, in your data vault. It depends, like not many people like it because it's become very complex, but
if you have
DBT is covering this
how
one.
many sources you have, right? If you have one or two sources, so it's not word, right? But if you have many sources,